Hi, so today we will be going through the quadratic formula. And what is the quadratic formula? This is a formula that we use to solve quadratic equations. So we can use it to find solutions. So typically, if you were to have this example here, x squared plus 7x plus 12, you can probably solve it like this, right? Just looking at it and saying, okay, we can see that 3 times 4 equals to 12, and you can add them together to get 7. So it can be x plus 3 and x plus 4. So that is the factorizing. And let's say equate this to 0. So then in this instance, for x plus 3 to be 0, x would have to be minus 3, or we have x is equal to minus 4. I see. Minus 4, right? So we can, so that was quick, simple. So let's say we could also use the formula, right? So let's say we substitute in the formula. So in fact, we have A, B, and C. What are A, B, and C? So A, B, and C, in fact, represent numbers. So in a quadratic formula, we would have ax squared plus bx plus c. So that would be the general formula. So you need to be able to identify what number is what. So let's use our example. So b is the number in front of x, that is the 7. So this would be minus 7 plus minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times a. A is the number in front of the x squared, but here there's no number, which means that a is in fact 1, because if there's an x, then it has to be at least 1, right? But you just don't do that because it's not really necessary to run 1 in front of the x. And so the next one we have to identify is c, which is the last number, which is 12. And all that is over 2 times by a, which is 1. Okay, so let's solve this formula. Or calculate it, I should say. So 7 squared is 49. 4 times 1 is 4, times by 12 is 48. So minus 48 over 2 is equal to minus 7 plus minus the square root of 1 over 2, which is equal to minus 7 plus minus 1 over 2. I'm just breaking it down. You could probably skip some of these, but I'm making sure that everything is clear. And anyways, so 7 minus 7 plus 1 is minus 6, minus 6 over 2, and we also have or minus 8 over 2, and then we get minus 3, and minus 8 over 2 is minus 4. So the same solution, so you can see that the formula works, right? But let's say we had a bit more of a complicated question. Let's just copy this down here so that you can see. So let's say we had a bit more of a complicated example. So let's say we had 2x squared plus 20x plus 13. So how would this go? So we already know how to substitute in. So this is b, 20, so minus 20 plus minus the square root of 20 squared minus 4 times by the number in front of x squared, which is 2 this time. So 2 times by 13 over 2 times by 2. So now see the calculations. So minus 20 plus minus square root of 20 squared, which is 400, minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 13 is 80, plus 24 is 104. So minus 104 over 4. Okay. So now we have minus 20 plus minus square root of 400 minus 100, which is 300, minus 4 is 296. So 296 over 4. Now you can see if 296 is a square number. I don't believe it is, but we can see if we can simplify it in any way. So it's 2 times 148, 2 times 74, and 2 times 37. So these are the factors. You see we have 2 2's here. So then that means we can rewrite 29 square root of 296 as the square root of 4 times by the square root of 74. Right, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 37 is 74. And square root of 4 is 2, so we can write that as 2 root 74. So that means we can have minus 20 plus minus the square root of 74, sorry, 2 root 74 over 4. So that gives us minus 5 plus minus half square root of 74. So the two solutions are minus 5 plus half square root 74, or is equal to minus 5 x, let's say, not the solution x. X is equal to minus 5 no, minus, sorry, half root 74. Okay, so we found two solutions. Now there is a way to always figure out how many solutions there are, because with quadratic equations there could be 2, there could be 1, or there could be 0 solutions. Sorry, real solutions, I should say. And so we can see that this is in fact has 2 real solutions if we were to look at the b squared minus 4ac. So if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, that means that there are 2 real solutions, 2 real solutions. So now we're going to look at another example where there is only, where there's no real solutions, right? So we have 2x squared plus 7x plus 13. So using the formula, let me copy it here again, just to keep it here. Reference. Yeah. So substituting that in, I guess it's minus 7 plus minus square root of 7 squared minus 4 times by 2 times by 13 over 2 times by 2. So this is equal to minus 7 plus minus the square root of 49 minus 104, because we calculated that earlier. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. Okay. So we got minus 7 plus minus 49 minus 104. So 49, if it was 50 minus 104, would be then in my head 50 minus 54. So 1 less minus 55. Yeah. Minus 55 over 4. Now, because the square root here is negative, there are no real solutions to this question. So you would say no real solutions. So there's a reason why we say real solutions, but in GCSE, you don't have to worry about that too deeply. You just have to say there's no real solutions if this was the case. Or most likely it will ask to prove why there are no real solutions, because the square root of a negative number has no real number, right? And there's a reason why real is chosen specifically, because there are things known as imaginary numbers, but that is beyond GCSE, so don't have to worry about that. You don't need to learn that at all for GCSE, really. So for GCSE maths, so don't worry about it. But yeah, so you can always tell there's no real solution when it's b squared minus 4ac, when this is less than 0. Whenever this is the case, there is no real solution. No real solution. Okay, now last example, where there's only one solution. So let's say we have 3x squared minus 6x plus 3 is equal to 0. Honestly, all the questions should really say equal to 0. To be honest, but never mind. So again, we're going to get the equation probably here just for reference, so it can be seen. And let's go for the question. So substitute in. So we have minus 6. So we have minus 6. So that is in fact a positive number. So now we just have 6. That's interesting. There we go. Now we just have 6 plus minus the square root of minus 6 squared minus 4 times by 3 times by 3 over 2 times by 3. So calculating that, we got 6 plus minus square root of minus 6 squared, which is 36, minus 3 times 3 is 9, times 4 is 36, and 2 times 3 is 6. So square root of 36 minus 36 is 0, and that just leaves us with 6 over 6, and that just gives us 1. Because square root of 0 is just 0. There's no positive, negative, so it negates. So that means there's only one solution where x is equal to 1. In that case, we can see that when b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, there is one real solution. So there is one real solution. And that's it for this lesson. Thank you for listening. You can just go over all everything that we've done so far. Look back here, go through the examples yourself, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.